Well, it's Thursday, and you can see I have a pile of stuff here on my table. So I was thinking over the last few days, what would be a good topic of discussion, since now I've sort of committed myself to doing something every week. I feel like I should try to follow through with that. So I thought, well, let's do a little show and tell of some past projects. Some of these, probably most of these, are on the YouTube channel, and some of them were sort of pre-YouTube and are on my Instagram. Really, you could probably find a lot of that stuff. So I'm just gonna maybe go back in history here and start at the beginning and see how far I get and do a little bit of explaining on what we have. Before I get started, I just want to point out some of my cool stickers that I got from John Creasy. I think they came late last week. Mail from Australia. From YouTube Machinist Group. I got some stickers from Emma's Spare Room, Tom Lipton there, Ox Tools, the Bar Z, Shark River. You know, so pretty cool. There's even one or two that I didn't even get to put up yet. So, you know, I thank John and the group here and everybody that participated in the stickers, and it really got me thinking about doing something very similar to that. So, thank you. Now it's graffitied all over my toolbox, so it'll be a constant reminder. The first item here is probably one of the oldest things that I have in this collection of things that I've worked on here in the last year or so. This is actually a filing device that you hook to a lathe. You would actually put this in the spindle of your lathe, and it's an eccentric, so as your lathe spins, it pulls this part up and down. So in the holder here, you'd put a file. It could be, I have this just drilled out for 1/8 inch, so what would go in there would be just a needle file, and then the file will move up and down this shaft as the lathe spins, and it would be good for squaring out corners on small pieces or things like that that you normally can't do on a machine, or just for finer details. There's larger versions of these machines that you might see in, I know there's a lot of footage on ClickSpring videos that have the filing machines, and I think I've seen them on a couple other YouTube channels. But what I actually did was I took the design that I found online, and I did end up making some drawings for all of these pieces, and I'm pretty sure that when I made it I followed the drawings pretty closely, so I didn't really have to divert too much. Very simple design, and very simple to make all the stuff. So this is an example of something, you know, if anybody's interested in doing something like this, just message me, comment, whatever, and I'll be more than happy to email the drawing here that I have. I actually have, I think, a posting on my Instagram that is just this drawing, so I have no problem providing this stuff and sharing it with people, because it is pretty cool. I did end up using it for one or two things in the past, so it's a handy little device. I'm just going to kill two birds with one stone here, even though I think I made these at separate times. So this is obviously just a small die holder for just a regular lathe. I used it on the 7x14 lathe that I had. That's now gone, and I plan on replacing it with a Shoreline lathe. But anyway, just a simple handle here, brass handle. I made it somewhat decorative. I Loctited a set screw in there. I made the handle removable just in case you have to remove it. And then I only have it bored for one size die. And then here's the spindle. So you put this in the drill chuck and allow the die to catch hold on your part, and there's your handle to hold it. Now this is a die holder for the watchmaker's lathe. So it's a little bit different. I have this piece that you would actually stick in the tailstock on the watchmaker's lathe. And then I have a couple different sizes of these that I made, and you basically just hold on to this by the knurl. There's no handle. In most cases on the watchmaker's lathe, I don't even turn the spindle on. I just spin it by hand and then allow this to do the work. So this I've actually used a number of times to make some smaller screws on the watchmaker's lathe. So it works very nice. I just kind of made it. I didn't really have a plan going into it. It just kind of developed as I worked on the project. This was an interesting project that I actually have a YouTube video series on. This was called the Huckabee wheel mechanism, and it's used to basically index gear wheels for milling gear teeth. I don't have it fully set up right now, and it's actually locked, so I can't even spin it. But it was a design that was in a clockmaking book that I bought on Amazon. If I can find it, I can show it or put a link in the description of the video. But basically, I had to make this fixture first, which was a very interesting and challenging thing to do. And this is just basically like a dividing head that's manual, and I would make templates with this to then put on here. And you can see the grooves in the side of the template here. The button on the end of this screw catches in the radius of the template, and that's how the indexing action happens to cut the gear teeth. So this was one that I was working on a while back, and this is actually pretty handy. It's very light duty, so you can't expect a lot from it. But it does actually work very well. And in this case, I even handmade some of these screws and blued them. Like there you can see two that I handmade on the watchmaker's lathe, and then I actually blued them. And some of that stuff is also on my Instagram. This is one of my more popular videos on YouTube. It's a series. I think there was maybe 7 or 8 videos there. It was at one time a rotary table that I maybe paid $60 or $70 for, and I basically turned it into a dividing head here. So I gutted the whole thing out. I bored the casting out. I made a steel sleeve. I made a steel bearing to that the actual table is rotating on. I put oil groove in that surface. I actually scraped this surface. I did a lot of improvements. I made it all square. I added a groove for clamping back here, and also you'd clamp in the front. There you can see an oiling point that I put in. I changed a lot of stuff, and then like I said, I added the dividing plate that I also made. When I made the dividing plate, I actually made 1-to-1 scale templates and printed them out in SolidWorks, and then I just glued that to here, and I literally prick punched all the hole locations and then drilled them out on a drill press. So again, that's in the video. It's rotary table to dividing head. Pretty good series there, and I really have only used this a couple times to do some drilling. It's very light duty. I mean, it's still a Chinese rotary table, and it's still not very rigid. There could still be further improvements if I wanted to go there, but I'll probably just end up actually getting you know, a more higher end rotary table to do any kind of milling with. Here's another one that's somewhat popular. This is the Squareness Comparator. I did a pretty good number of videos on this one, and it turned out pretty well, and I use this often. Actually, it works very well. It's very repeatable. It's very rigid. The design is semi-stolen from Stefan. Everybody seems to know that, and you know, I kind of credit him for raising the popularity of squareness comparators and indicator holders. He and Robin Renzetti, Tom Lipton, those three guys really made this sudden fad for everybody to become obsessed with squareness comparators and indicator holders and such. There's still another design type indicator holder that I wouldn't mind taking from both of those guys, Robin and Stefan. So very cool little tool. It took me a while to do it. Some of the parts I did on a CNC. Some of these smaller components here I did on the Shoreline. But all in all, a very good project. I learned a good bit. I made some custom tools. Some of that is on the Instagram also. The custom dovetail cutter that I made and hardened and everything like that. So very cool project. And finally, here we have the collection of various items, work holding type stuff that I made for the Shoreline mill. I did some vise hold downs. These things work great. I did the horizontal milling clamps, you know, so we clamp these to the table and then we can sandwich a piece between these 4 clamps. I've used those. They work very well also, and very handy for grabbing things that normally I couldn't grab in the small vise. And then here is my tombstone, my angle plate. I plan on using this in the coming weeks as I continue working on the watchmaker's lathe carriage, and I actually used it recently on a little side project thing. So it's definitely come in handy, and it's kind of fun making your own little work holding accessories and machine accessories. There's still some indicator clamps that I'd like to make that bolt onto the machine, you know, for depth stops and things like that. They would become handy. I find that I constantly have to move my indicator around to get precise movement on the machine because I don't have a digital readout. So, and the handles don't really count very well. So there's a lot of other little projects that I'll probably come up and design with. I do have some drawings for this one if anybody wanted, and I did forget to mention I do have drawings for the Squareness Comparator and indicator holder if anybody's interested in those. I'd be more than happy, again, if you comment or message or whatever. I'll definitely send those out if anybody's interested. So I hope the tour of the projects was interesting and enlightening and maybe even inspiring to some extent. That'd be cool. Again, if anybody's interested in any of these things or wants more information, just let me know. And we'll be back next Thursday.